Okay, as promised, we're going to do a quick video on some of the questions that I received about the Chapter 6 test. This may be helpful for you to pause the video at this time and make sure you get out your copy of the Chapter 6 test questions so you can go over them with us. I really only had a couple of people send stuff in, so I really appreciate that. If you did, it helps us all out. If there are additional questions that you've got after this is over, feel free to email me and I will address them as quickly as I can. So far today, all of the email and Schoology stuff seems to be working. All right, so here we go. First question I got was about question number 5. So this question says, a comparison of Europe's linguistic and political maps shows a high correlation between the languages spoken and the. And the correct answer is political organization of space. One of the things that you really need to remember is that language is a defining cultural element, and that countries are trying to build nation states. Throughout Europe, you have countries that have spent hundreds of years developing an identity as separate from their neighbors. So they use language often as a way to emphasize how different they are from one another. What makes the French different from the Germans is that they speak French. What makes them different from the Spaniards is that they speak French. So the boundaries of countries and the use of language match up pretty well. It's not exact, but when you look at the regions in Europe where languages are used and you look at the political boundaries, there's a very strong correlation. Those two maps are very similar. The map of European language and the map of European political organization. Okay, so question number 6 says, the quality of the standard language of a society is. And here's a little test-taking strategy for you. This probably won't help you on the on AP exams, and it won't help you on our AP exam because it's all FRQs now. But just for future reference, if somebody's going to take the time to write an exceptionally long answer choice, it's a pretty good chance that that's their correct answer. I'm not telling you to choose it every time, but I'm saying if you had to guess, that's where I'd guess. In this case, the correct answer was a matter of cultural identity and national concern, and may be protected by national laws. Standard languages are the languages as they are written in grammar books, written for standardized usage. So think of the example of France having a ministry that does its own official standardization of language. Or in the United States, you can see this as a cultural identity piece. Even though we don't have an official language, we use English again and again and again and again and again in formal instruction. So that's what answer choice D is about. All right, so our final multiple choice question that we had, that I had emailed to me about some interest in, was question 16. So this may take a second for you to either pause and find this particular question, but hopefully by now you've got it. 16 says, one reason that Hispanics could argue for the recognition of Spanish as a de facto second language of the United States is the. Now, de facto means that it's not created by law, but it's the most common, the most likely practiced. So what the question is asking you is, why would Spanish be kind of our de facto second language? What is it that makes it so likely to be used? Now, the most common incorrect answer would be B, high number of Hispanics in all counties in the United States. If you look at maps in your textbook, online, in any of our slideshows that show the use of Spanish language, you'll find that there's a lot of Spanish language used in some parts of the United States, not in all areas. So take, for example, Hamilton County. Hamilton County has a large population, but the number of people who are speaking Spanish in Hamilton County is pretty small. In fact, it's somewhat difficult if you're a Spanish language speaker in our county because the bulk of the population is using English. Now, on the other hand, if you lived in South Florida, if you lived in Arizona, New Mexico, southern portions of Texas, southern portions of California, there's a lot of folks there who are using Spanish. In fact, there are entire communities where Spanish is the primary language spoken. So your best answer for 16 is the unique regional concentration of Hispanics. One of the things that makes Spanish language different than any other non-English language in U.S. history is this strong regionalization. We've had other non-English speaking immigrant populations in the United States. large numbers of Germans, for example, that came in the mid-1800s all the way up through the early 1900s. But the difference is those German populations quickly assimilated. They moved to various areas within the United States. The Hispanic population has come to the U.S. since the 1970s, and it's come to targeted areas in large numbers. That regionalization has allowed Spanish language to maintain itself in those areas in a way that we've never seen before. So it's large numbers and regional concentration that matter there. But it's not happening all across the United States. So it can't be answer choice B, answer choice A becomes the best one. All right, I also had a question about euphemisms. Euphemisms are phrases or words that replace a taboo word or phrase. So when we say taboo word or phrase, we mean that there's some reason you're not supposed to say it. American society's changed a bunch. So this is something that maybe is a generational gap between textbook writers, question writers, and students. Example would be that for people my age or older, there are a lot of words that you really weren't supposed to say in polite society because they were couth or uncouth or crass or they had some sort of negative connotation to them, and so we would replace them. You would not tell people what you were doing in the restroom. You would say that you were going to the restroom. You were going to the water closet. Or ladies in the pre-World War II era would say that they were powdering their nose, which of course could mean something very different today. The most common way you're going to experience euphemisms today is if you listen to music or watch TV that has been edited because of content. There was something that maybe was considered inappropriate for you to hear. It's, let's say, any movie starring Samuel L. Jackson that has a rated R attached to it. Those movies are going to have Samuel Jackson using all kinds of profanity, but you're not allowed to hear it on, say, NBC at 8 o'clock at night on a Wednesday. So they bleep out all the F words and they put in things like fudge instead. That would be a euphemism. It's replacing a taboo phrase or word. Okay. All right, and then finally, I had a question about the FRQ and the idea of regions. Anytime an FRQ asks you about a region, it is acceptable for you to use a country, a county, or a region, say within the United States, like the Rust Belt, Sun Belt, the Milk Shed, the Corn Belt, the Bible Belt. Those are all regions as well. Could you use an entire continent as a region? Yes, you could, but be careful with this. If you use Europe as a region, there's a lot of different European countries doing a lot of different things. Or if you used Africa, this is a big trap. Students that use Africa as a region, rarely are things always true in an entire continent, especially in Africa. Now, Northern Africa, now that's a better region because it's a little more unified. Sub-Saharan Africa, again, more unified. Eastern Africa, Western Africa, or an individual African country. But even then, be a little bit careful because some African countries are the creation of post-colonialism, so it's a little bit difficult to say that all of that region is one particular way. So I'm not telling you can't do it. I'm saying be cautious. You can define regions on all sorts of different scales. You can talk about regions within a country, regions within a city. So, such as the west side of Cincinnati could be seen as a region. So, just realize that anytime you see the word region, there is flexibility. Be careful making blanket statements about an entire, really large region. The larger the number of square miles, the bigger the problem could be. All right, I hope that answers the questions that you had about the Chapter 6 test. Don't forget that there's another video that I posted earlier today that has information about what the course, what changes we've made to the course as we get ready for the AP exam, and we'll have more information for you coming up soon. Good luck.